Have you ever noticed that the happiest people often seem to be the most oblivious? That child laughing in the park doesn't understand mortality. That carefree couple doesn't see their relationship's inevitable end. That joyful elderly man hasn't read the existentialist philosophers who would tell him his life was meaningless. Could it be that wisdom, the very thing we chase and celebrate, is actually the poison that destroys our happiness? Arthur Schopenhauer, that gloomy 19th century German philosopher, certainly thought so. He proposed something that challenges our entire educational system, our pursuit of knowledge and our modern fixation on awareness. What if the more you know, the more miserable you become? Intelligence and knowledge were supposed to be our salvation. We built universities, created encyclopedias, and now carry the sum of human knowledge in our pockets. Yet suicide rates are highest among the most educated populations. Depression plagues academics more than manual laborers. The countries with the highest IQs don't report the highest happiness levels. Think about the last time you learned something that you wish you hadn't. Maybe it was discovering an uncomfortable truth about someone you admired, or learning about some environmental catastrophe you can do nothing about. How did that knowledge affect your mood, your day, your outlook on life? Modern psychology has given this phenomenon a name: depressive realism. Studies show that people with mild depression often have more accurate perceptions of reality than their non-depressed counterparts. The clinically happy among us are frequently operating under delusions about themselves, their prospects, and their control over the world. So what exactly does wisdom reveal that destroys our happiness? Let's dive into the specific curses of knowing too much. Last summer, I watched my 5-year-old niece play at the beach for hours, completely absorbed in the joy of building sandcastles that would be washed away by the tide. When I pointed this out, she simply shrugged and said, "I'll build more tomorrow." No existential crisis, no meditation on impermanence, just pure acceptance and joy in the moment. Animals don't understand death. A dog doesn't comprehend that one day it will cease to exist. But humans, we're cursed with the knowledge of our inevitable demise from a young age. Every achievement, every pleasure, every relationship forms under the shadow of this knowledge. Schopenhauer recognized that our awareness of death colors every experience. The fear of death is the beginning of philosophy, he wrote. We build elaborate systems, religions, philosophies, legacies, to deny, transcend, or make peace with this knowledge. But those naive to death's reality, whether through youth, cognitive limitation, or cultural insulation, seem freed from this existential burden. They live fully in moments that the wise person can never fully inhabit, always seeing the skeleton beneath the skin. Have you ever had a perfect moment ruined by the thought, "This too shall pass"? That's the curse of mortality awareness at work. Now that we've seen how mortality awareness haunts our experience, let's explore another devastating revelation of wisdom: the illusion of free will. Imagine believing completely that you are the author of your destiny, that your achievements are entirely your own, that your desires arise freely from your authentic self. Feels good, doesn't it? Now what if I told you it's all an illusion? Schopenhauer was among the first Western philosophers to deny free will entirely, arguing that man can do what he wants, but he cannot will what he wants. Our desires, preferences, and even our thoughts arise from causes beyond our control: genetics, upbringing, random neurological processes. Modern neuroscience has only reinforced this view. Brain imaging shows that our decisions are made before we become consciously aware of them. We're essentially watching a movie of choices our unconscious brain has already made, while maintaining the illusion that we're directing the action. The simple person, unburdened by this knowledge, experiences life as genuinely self-directed. Their triumphs feel earned, their choices meaningful. But the wise person sees the causal chain stretching back before birth, recognizing themselves as merely a complex algorithm running on biological hardware they didn't design. While mortality awareness robs us of joy in the present, and the illusion of free will undermines our sense of agency, there's yet another way wisdom destroys happiness: by shattering our belief in progress. Remember when you were a child and believed that grown-ups had everything figured out? That the world was getting better? That science would solve our problems? That good would triumph over evil? How did it feel when that belief crumbled? Education teaches us to celebrate human progress, medical advances, technological innovations, social reforms. But wisdom forces us to see a more complex picture. Schopenhauer rejected the Enlightenment notion of inevitable progress, seeing instead that human nature remained fundamentally unchanged. Despite our scientific miracles, we continue to wage wars, exploit the vulnerable, and destroy our environment. The informed person today knows that our technological paradise rests on ecological catastrophe, that our medical advances create new problems of overpopulation and antibiotic resistance, that our connectivity brings new forms of alienation and manipulation. The less informed person can enjoy their smartphone without thinking about the exploited cobalt miners, appreciate their medication without considering pharmaceutical industry corruption, and use social media without understanding how it's rewiring their brain for addiction. Does this resonate with you? Have you ever wished you could unlearn something about a product you enjoy just so you could use it without guilt? Beyond these specific curses lies a more universal truth that wisdom reveals, one that Schopenhauer considered his most profound insight. Let's explore the fundamental reality of suffering that the wise cannot unsee. During a recent meditation retreat, a fellow participant, a successful executive who had rarely paused in his driven life, broke down in tears. "I never realized how much suffering exists in every moment," he confessed. "How do people live with this awareness?" Schopenhauer saw that pain is positive, pleasure merely negative, the temporary relief from desire. We spend our lives chasing brief respites from suffering, never achieving lasting satisfaction. "Life is a business that does not cover the costs," he wrote, calculating that the sum of human suffering far exceeds happiness. This mathematical inequality becomes apparent only through careful observation and thought through wisdom. Consider how many living things must suffer and die for others to survive. How many hopes are crushed for each one fulfilled. How many hours of tedium, pain, and anxiety we endure for each moment of genuine joy. The simple person sees only their immediate pleasure, not the web of suffering that makes it possible. The wise person sees all this and more, making pure enjoyment impossible. Their greater awareness reveals suffering's ubiquity, turning even pleasure into a morally complex experience. Moving from the universal to the interpersonal, wisdom also uncovers uncomfortable truths about our social connections, perhaps the most painful revelations of all. Have you ever had that moment at a party where you suddenly step outside yourself and see the social dynamics at play, the status games, the insecurities driving behavior, the masks everyone is wearing? It's like seeing the Matrix code instead of the simulation. Most human interaction operates on convenient fictions, politeness that masks indifference, social contracts that paper over selfish impulses, relationships maintained through mutual illusion. Almost all of our sorrows spring out of our relations with other people, Schopenhauer noted. He saw society as a compromise where individuals pretend to care about others more than themselves, while privately pursuing selfish ends. The socially naive person takes the performance at face value, believing in unconditional love, true altruism, and lasting loyalty. The wise person sees the evolutionary and psychological mechanisms beneath: status competition, reciprocal altruism, mating strategies. Which person enjoys better relationships? Often the naive one, who never questions a friend's motives or a lover's commitment, who believes compliments without reservation and accepts social norms without critique. The wise person becomes a perpetual outsider, seeing the machinery behind the theater of social life, unable to fully participate in the comforting illusions that sustain human connection. Having explored the curses of wisdom, we now face a crucial question. What does the evidence tell us about the relationship between knowledge and happiness? Let me tell you about two friends of mine. Maria has 3 graduate degrees, speaks 5 languages, and consumes dense philosophical texts for fun. Alex dropped out of college, works a simple job, and spends weekends fishing and watching sports. Guess which one takes antidepressants? And which one radiates contentment? Perhaps the most damning evidence against wisdom comes from happiness research itself. Studies consistently show that beyond a basic threshold, increased knowledge, education, and awareness correlate with decreased happiness. The happiest communities are often those with simpler worldviews, stronger religious beliefs, and less exposure to competing perspectives. The happiest individuals typically score lower on measures of reflexive self-awareness and higher on measures of flow, the ability to lose oneself in activity without self-consciousness. Schopenhauer recognized this, recommending artistic immersion, aesthetic contemplation, and compassionate action as temporary escapes from the suffering caused by knowledge. But these were merely palliatives, not cures for the disease of wisdom. Modern positive psychology echoes him, finding that mindfulness, the ability to stop intellectualizing and simply experience, correlates strongly with subjective well-being. In other words, happiness often requires turning off the very faculties that generate wisdom. What does this mean for those of us who've already bitten the apple of knowledge? Are we doomed to unhappiness? To answer this, let's examine how philosophers throughout history have responded to this dilemma. Throughout history, wisdom has been seen both as a path to enlightenment and a burden that diminishes happiness. Ancient thinkers like Socrates and the Buddha emphasized self-awareness and detachment. Socrates, for instance, argued that the unexamined life is not worth living, suggesting that wisdom leads to a deeper understanding of oneself and the world. The Buddha, on the other hand, taught that wisdom helps free people from suffering by detaching from desires. However, this awareness can also lead to dissatisfaction, as one recognizes the impermanence of all things. In modern times, existentialists like Friedrich Nietzsche and Albert Camus present wisdom as a double-edged sword. Nietzsche believed that deep understanding often isolates individuals, making it difficult to engage in everyday joys. Camus, in The Myth of Sisyphus, describes the absurd man, one who realizes life has no inherent meaning, yet must find a way to live with this knowledge. This paradox raises an important question. Does happiness come from ignorance, where one remains unbothered by life's complexities, or from wisdom, which provides clarity but exposes harsh realities? While some may find joy in knowledge, others might argue that a simpler, less introspective life leads to greater happiness. Schopenhauer himself recommended asceticism, denial of the will to life itself. If existence is suffering, and wisdom reveals this truth, then the wise response is to minimize participation in the whole brutal enterprise. Not suicide, which he saw as affirming the will, but a kind of living death through renunciation. A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants, he wrote, suggesting that the wise person should extinguish desire itself. Which of these philosophical approaches resonates with you, or do you have your own method for bearing the weight of wisdom? To bring these abstract ideas into sharper focus, let's compare 2 fictional characters who embody our paradox. Professor James Morrison, brilliant neuroscientist and philosopher, graduate of elite institutions, author of groundbreaking works on consciousness. His knowledge is vast, his insights profound. During a recent university lecture, a student asked him if his understanding of the brain had made him happier. He laughed bitterly. "I know too much to be happy," he replied. "I understand that my love for my wife is just oxytocin and attachment theory, that my pride in my work is just status-seeking behavior selected by evolution, that my moral convictions are relative cultural constructs with no objective foundation. His marriages have failed because he analyzed them to death. His achievements bring no satisfaction because he understands the neurochemistry of reward. He can't enjoy films because he deconstructs their manipulative techniques. He can't sustain political conviction because he sees the flaws in every system. Then there's Joe Simmons, high school graduate, manual laborer with simple tastes. At the local diner, he tells me, "Sure, life has problems, but I've got my family, my faith, my fishing." What more could a man want? His worldview contains contradictions he's never examined. He accepts his community's values without question. Joe's marriage is stable because he doesn't overthink it. He enjoys simple pleasures without analysis. His limited exposure to alternative perspectives protects him from doubt. His religious faith, untroubled by theological complexities, gives him comfort. Which man is better off? The question seems to answer itself, but another question follows. Given the choice, would you rather be Joe or James? Be honest with yourself. We've now explored the various ways wisdom can destroy happiness and the different philosophical responses to this dilemma. Let's step back and define what we might call the wisdom paradox. Knowledge appears necessary for meaningful human life, yet destructive to human happiness. Without wisdom, we remain manipulable, unable to detect deception or protect ourselves from exploitation. We make poor decisions based on false information. We perpetuate harmful systems through ignorance. Yet with wisdom comes the dissolution of comforting illusions, exposure to truths we're not evolved to handle, awareness of limitations we can't overcome. Schopenhauer's contemporary Søren Kierkegaard captured this dilemma perfectly. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. We can't unlearn what we know, can't return to naive happiness once wisdom has revealed life's true nature. The truly wise person then faces a meta-question. How much wisdom should one pursue? Is there an optimal point on the knowledge curve before diminishing returns to happiness set in? Should wisdom itself be strategically limited? Having examined the philosophical traditions, let's now turn to more practical paths for navigating the wisdom-happiness paradox in everyday life. One approach is strategic ignorance, which I see in my friend Laura, a climate scientist. She limits her research to specific days of the week, recognizing that if she dwelled on the climate crisis constantly, it would prevent her from moving forward. This is not about avoiding reality, but about knowing when more information serves no purpose other than to increase suffering. Another path is transcendent wisdom, which goes beyond intellectual understanding to a more direct, experiential form of knowing. Mystics and certain meditation traditions advocate this shift. As a Zen saying puts it, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The tasks may remain the same, but our relationship to them changes. This suggests that the issue isn't with wisdom itself, but with stopping at intellectual knowledge instead of diving into lived experience. Then there is the creative response, inspired by Nietzsche's idea of dancing over the abyss. This approach acknowledges the harsh realities wisdom reveals, but chooses to respond with creative acts, art, love, service, and meaning-making. When nothing has inherent meaning, we're free to create our own, transforming painful truths into purposeful action. Wisdom integration is another crucial path. It involves using psychological tools to cope with difficult truths without succumbing to despair. Cognitive reframing, radical acceptance, and mindfulness help us process hard knowledge and build resilience. Much like therapists guide people through painful realizations while helping them hold on to their well-being. Finally, communal wisdom offers an age-old solution: sharing the burden of knowledge. Indigenous cultures have long used community rituals and shared spiritual labor to divide the weight of wisdom, ensuring that no one person has to bear it alone. This approach recognizes that humans may not be designed to handle the full weight of difficult truths in isolation. So, which of these approaches resonates with you, or have you found another way to reconcile wisdom with well-being? We've journeyed through the curses of wisdom, mortality awareness, the illusion of free will, the myth of progress, the reality of suffering, and the social truth. We've explored philosophical responses from ancient Stoicism to modern existentialism, and practical paths from strategic ignorance to communal wisdom. Schopenhauer's insight that wisdom increases suffering appears validated by both philosophical tradition and modern science. Intelligence, knowledge, and awareness often come at the cost of happiness, revealing a fundamental tension in human existence. Yet despite this cost, few of us would choose to return to ignorance. Even Schopenhauer, perhaps history's most pessimistic philosopher, never recommended willful stupidity. He recognized that while wisdom increases suffering, it also enables compassion, creativity, and dignity, values that transcend mere happiness. Perhaps wisdom's curse is also its blessing, the burden that gives human life its weight and significance. What makes humans distinct from other creatures is precisely our capacity to know too much for our own happiness, yet to bear that knowledge and create meaning despite it. So what will you choose? The blue pill of blissful ignorance, or the red pill of painful wisdom? Before you answer, consider that the very act of choosing, of weighing consequences and examining values, already reveals your commitment to wisdom over innocence. The question, then, isn't whether to pursue wisdom, but how to carry its weight with grace, how to know too much and still find reasons to go on, to create, to connect, and perhaps to discover a deeper satisfaction beyond the simple happiness that wisdom destroys. If this exploration of life's hardest truth has changed your perspective or revealed something about your own relationship with knowledge and happiness, please share this video with someone else who might be carrying wisdom's burden. Like and subscribe for more philosophical explorations that dare to look unflinchingly at life's most challenging paradoxes. And remember, sometimes the wisest among us aren't those who avoid suffering through ignorance, but those who transform suffering through understanding. That transformation might be wisdom's ultimate purpose and our most human task. Are you ready to bear the burden of knowing too much? Let me know in the comments.